Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast where we disassemble a film from the Marvel Cinematic Universe in 1 minute segments and then examine it in obsessive and occasionally hilarious detail. I'm Kyle Olson from the Swashbuckling Ladies Debate Society podcast.
Hey, and I'm Rob Cabasco, and Kyle.
Yes, sir.
I am about to describe 3 things to you, and we're going to see if you know what phrase they all share in common.
All right,
here we go. Number 1. A technique used in aviation by air traffic control when an aircraft reaches the boundary of a center's control area as it moves into the next one. Number 2.
Okay.
In American football, it is an act of handing the ball directly from one player to another without it leaving the first player's hands. And number 3, a feature introduced in Apple's iOS 8 and OS X Yosemite operating systems where seamless control is passed between devices. Do you know what all 3 of these things are?
I was just saying, you've gotten the trifecta of my interests, which is organized sports, aviation, and specialized technology. Of course I know, but I don't want to steal your thunder. By saying it out loud, but I absolutely totally know. I
know you do. It is the hyphenated phrase handoff.
Handoff.
What does that have to do with this minute as the credits continue to roll?
That is an interesting question here at minute 123 of Iron Man 2 from 2010. Director is Jon Favreau. So, as we're continuing on the theme of sort of opening up the curtain, showing you behind the scenes, we spent an entire episode showing how we made the show. And one of the reasons we wanted to explain to you how it is that we make the show is because that's not the way the show is going to be made anymore.
What?
So, if you went from season 2 to season 3, when we were running it, Incredible Hulk and over Entire Man, there was a big gap between the two of those. And in the time, we sort of made the joke about, it was given to us, and so we're going to give it to the next person. We made a joke about how we were getting ready for the next team to come in. Well, it's not a joke anymore. So, not a bit. We're not doing a shtick here. This is not a thing.
Joke? No, the joke was that the first time, it's us again.
Yeah, it's us again. That was the joke. Right. So the joke of this time is it's not us anymore. So this is us officially saying Rob and I are leaving the Marvel Movie Minute.
It's official. Wait, that's it.
It's official.
Yes. You just made it known.
I have declared it. It has been declared.
Now, let's clear some things up. Let's look this up before the rumors start.
Right.
Because I know they will. Were we fired? No. No, we were not fired.
No, we're not. Is the show going away now?
Oh, God, no. It's only going to get bigger and better. Here's what happened. We as it came time to near the end of the production schedule, as it did in season 2, we looked at each other and we said, "Hey, do you want to re-up for this again? We're having fun. We're having a blast." Yes, we did. And you know what? Nature and life and everything that's been going around, we looked at each other and we said, can we do this again for a 3rd season for us, 4th season for the show? Yeah. And we both went, no. We can't.
And it was nothing against either of us. We're not. This is not a conscious uncoupling. We're not breaking up with each other. We're still having fun doing podcasts together. But there is a great deal of effort. I think that's part of what the last episode hopefully showed you. There's a huge amount of effort that goes into doing this show. It is very, very consuming. And we just looked at that and went, oh man, there's just so many other things that we want to be doing, and to take on that again, and also, honestly, for a movie that neither of us have really strong feelings about.
No, I think we've always talked about this, and in 119 where we talked about the backstory of how we do this. Yeah. This is a labor of love, first and foremost, and it should be. And so if we're not feeling it for the movie, then and though I'm excited about it because the next movie in the line is very pertinent for what's going on in the MCU. Yeah. But then the other issue is that if you can't devote 100% to this because again love, then we know when it's time to we've got other projects and ideas that we want to put our energies on, and that's what we want to do. And thankfully, I know I always say this, our next real overlords, which I'm sure they cringe with laughter every time I say that. But Andy and Pete were incredibly grateful, and we are grateful to them. I know we've said this many times before. It was great. We've been privileged to do this. We'll say more as we wrap up the final minute.
This is our final episode.
But here's what the great part about this minute is.
Yeah.
It's a real official handoff that we wanted to introduce all of you to the next stewards of the Marvel Movie Minute.
Right. As opposed to just having it be that we're going away and then there's a big period of silence. There's what's happening, what's going on. No, like we wanted to do this officially and introduce you to the team that's going to be taking over. So we got a chance to sit down with them. And so we had a little interview. So we're going to play that for you now. We got a chance to talk to the upcoming team. So ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to the new team for Marvel Movie Minute Season 4. All right, so we are here talking with the current hosts of the Marvel Movie Minute and the future hosts of the Marvel Movie Minute. It is a convergence of epic proportions. No variance here, though. We're getting down to the serious business. So, the first person, that obviously, you know who we are because you've been listening to the show for 122 episodes, presumably. Or you're a giant fan coming in from outside because you heard about the new people coming in which case, welcome. The first voice I wanted to say, besides Rob is also here.
Yeah, hello.
There he is. It'll be a familiar voice because he's the creator. Was it creator? I don't know. Or founder or original host of the Marvel Minute, Mr. Andy Nelson.
Why, hello there.
So, obviously, you started this whole thing off. You brought us in when you were like, I don't want to do Hulk. But now, back taking the reins. But you're not the one taking it alone. We actually have a brand new person who will be the primary host. So, a lot of you who have not been following the Next Real stuff might not know, but we have a podcast veteran, Matthew Fox.
Fresh from the podcast wars. Pleased to be with y'all.
There you go. So, obviously, people know Andy, so we don't really care much about him. Matthew, tell us a little bit about like your. Let's talk about your podcasting experience first, because I know you've got your own shows.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be a part of this. I was recently a guest, or not recently. I was a guest on the Marvel Movie Minute. I guess the original season on Iron Man, and sort of always continue to be a fan. And I've been doing a couple podcasts now. The first podcast I started was called Superhero Ethics. It actually started out of Marvel stuff. My buddy and I were continually arguing Team Cap versus Team Tony from Civil War. And eventually I was just like, look, why don't we just record these conversations? Because I love the Marvel movies. I love all kind of superhero movies, but especially with Marvel, because there's just, I find like people write them off as though they're just, comic book movies. Martin Scorsese says whatever it is to say. I feel like there's so much depth and there's so much richness, particularly around one of the things that I love most, ethical questions. And so, I've had this podcast for a while that's just about, taking everything from like, what does it mean to be a good fan or a toxic fan to, questions of representation to just diving into like, was Magneto right? Was Killmonger a hero? Was Punisher not a hero? All kind of fun things like that. And so that's the main one I do. I also do a podcast called Star Wars Universe Podcast, which is more of just kind of a straight fan podcast because my mother used to joke that when I was a kid, she could just put the Star Wars tape in the Betamax, which for all our younger listeners, a Betamax was the first of the VHSs. And for our very younger listeners, a VHS was sort of like a CD player, DVD player. But the point being, my mother knew she could just put in the video and leave to go out shopping for an hour. I wouldn't get in any trouble. I've just been Star Wars obsessed since I was a kid. And so I just love having this podcast just to talk about it. We're doing episodes on The Bad Batch. We had episodes on, the movies, the Light of the Jedi books. So, it's been really fun kind of having those two things. But ethics is a really fun, lens to look at things through. But it's kind of limiting. And so having the chance to kind of take the sort of stuff I do with Star Wars, which is more general fan discussion, but also take my, academic research love and just dive super deep into every moment of a movie. When Andy contacted me and asked how I wanted to be a part of this, it was just like a slam dunk. I'd love to do it. So we're looking forward to it.
So obviously you've seen Thor.
Once or twice. 5 times by now.
What is it specifically about Thor that sort of that attracted you to it? What I guess without giving away what you're going to be talking about, what was your sort of take on it that made it so that, yes, I can talk about this for 120 some episodes?
Sure. And I'll probably repeat the story in more depth, but I'll just start by saying I wasn't a Thor fan to start with. I loved Iron Man. I thought the Hulk was okay. Captain America and Thor, I was like, I don't need to see those. And then I saw the Avengers movie. And I was like, this this Thor character, there's something here. I want to go see it. And I watched the first movie, and I think it was such an interesting take in so many ways and even still then, I think I was sort of like, okay, well, there's some fun stuff going on here. I don't really know much of what's happening. But then when I got the chance to kind of go, after I sort of really fell in love with the character in later movies, Thor Ragnarok, etc., and had the chance to kind of go back and watch this movie again and realize, like, yeah, the first time I watched it, all I was seeing was a pretty guy with long hair and swinging the hammer, and realizing like a Shakespearean director of high renown had directed this because he saw it as a great work of Shakespearean art, of epic storytelling. And, some of my background in other parts of my life is theological, and I've always been interested in kind of different gods and goddess ideas and things like that, and looking at it from the, how do you take a story of a god from Norse mythology and translate that into the kind of Marvel world of pseudo-realism, there was just so many aspects there that I wanted to kind of look at. And the idea of really kind of being able to go moment by moment, of kind of hitting that pause button and not just getting swept up and saying, okay, well, what's actually happening here? To give kind of one, I don't want to spoil too much, but I was recently rewatching it, and I noticed that there a number of the scenes where Thor is first on Earth, they're always shot at a camera angle that's kind of like 40 degrees off center. It's the kind of thing, like, I don't think you notice if you're not really paying attention, but just wanting to dive into tiny little details like that just got me super excited to really explore what was happening in this movie, and because it really is a foundational piece for so many of the Marvel characters that we come to know later, both Thor and that Loki had his own show and all the other stuff.
I just want to say, Matthew, that the Marvel Movie Minute is about to get a huge intellectual upgrade.
I think it's the same thing.
I am looking forward to season 4 tremendously. Fantastic.
Well, I may have accidentally set far too high a bar for myself. So it's not,
No, you're good. No, don't worry. You're good. You're good.
No, believe me, our bar is so low.
It's not.
You might hurt your ankles getting over it.
Yeah, you're good.
We'll see.
So, Andy, what sort of drew you back? Like, you have been podcasting, obviously, in the world, but like, what is it that made you want to sort of step back into a minute by minute?
Well, I always really enjoyed doing this show. It is a time consuming show, and work things shifted for me, and at the time it made it very difficult for me to keep going with Hulk and Iron Man 2. But per COVID, things shifted again, and now I'm like, hey, you know what? I think I could do this again. And as it happens, I really do enjoy the Thor story. It's, again, just like Matthew said, this is a story we'll probably get into early on in the show. But when the movie Thor came out, I was, well, I don't know if I could say hired, but I was asked pro bono with theoretical financial reward if something happened from it, to actually write a Thor script for a buddy of mine who was pitching it to a company very much kind of like Asylum, one of those like, pseudo companies that releases things very similar in the vein of another property that's out there. And he asked me to write a Thor script, and he said the budget is going to be really low. I can't remember what it was at the time. They were talking to Kevin Sorbo to be Thor and all of this stuff.
Well, of course they were.
But he was going to be like the name and probably could only be there for, I can't remember, just a couple of days on set. And so I had to write a script that wasn't about Thor, but had Thor in it that he could probably shoot in like 2 days. And so that was kind of my challenge. And so I actually ended up doing a lot of research on Thor and Norse mythology. And I wrote this script, and it was just one of those things. By the time the script finished, they had already lost interest, and it's like, oh well, what are you going to do? But it was fun, and I got some experience in the world of Thor. So
what was your take? I mean, without giving away too much of what you're going to be talking about, like, what was your sort of angle? How did you see Thor as a character in the script you were writing?
Well, it had to be completely non-Marvel related, non-comic book related. It had to be the Thor from Norse mythology, and so I was pulling, like, he did have. At one point, well, and the focus of the story was actually a kid, and it was called Thor and the Almighty Dave was the name of it, because Dave was this kid who, I don't know, it's a long story, but anyway, he needs a role model in his life. He doesn't have a dad in his life, and he's always loved this Norse character Thor, and then one day Thor appears and gives him the inspiration and motivation he needs to kind of make some choices in his life, and it's a fun kids adventure sort of story.
Nice.
And Thor pops in a few times to give him some advice, and he does ride. He has a go-kart that he rides with his goats. That pull his go-kart.
Wouldn't that be a goat cart?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I probably used that joke in the script yeah. No.
So it was like Thor by way of Cloak and Dagger.
It's something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I was gonna say by way of like the '80s movies I loved, like Goonies, but it sounds like the same kind of idea,
Right, exactly. So it would have been a fun thing, but I did so much Thor research that I kind of really fell in love with the character and the whole idea of the Norse mythology and everything, and I really enjoyed what they were doing with the world in the Marvel films. Albeit different from the actual Norse mythology. It's still there, but they're changing it as they see fit. And they were fun movies. And this was one that was coming up. And, right at the very beginning of Marvel Movie Minute, Pete and I were talking about the idea of you having to earn your wizards. And that was one of the reasons that Iron Man kind of made sense as a first thing, because it seemed like a grounded story. Yeah. And I think by this point, they're kind of in a place where they're kind of earning those wizards. And so I think it'll be fun to jump back into this show. And
it's one of the big three.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that I find most fascinating about it, because kind of what you're just saying, Andy, like those first movies were grounded very much in reality. You could sort of believe that everything was like, okay, if you kind of believe this science could happen, it could happen. But it was all on Earth. It was all set during times we understand. The battles happened in New York or like in World War II. And now we're going out into space. Now we're going out into multi-dimensions. Now we're dealing with gods who can fly and throw hammers. And it's such an expansion of it. But at the heart of the story, it's about two brothers trying to figure out which one of them their father loves and trusts more. And like, I've never gone to space, but I have a sibling and I have a father and we've had rivalries. And like, I love the idea of telling a story that's this big, huge, other dimensional thing, but the human concept of it is so fundamentally relatable to all of us. And that's one of the things I love most in stories. We can say like, take an emotional dynamic that put it in a totally different situation, but you can still relate to that dynamic. And I think it's kind of what Brano was getting at with the Shakespearean themes, but also just the family themes are ones that, we've seen 100 times, but never in this kind of context.
It's interesting that Kevin Feige takes such big swings. I don't think people give him quite enough credit for that, because when you're coming off to Iron Man, so regular guy, robot suit, got it. Like, I understand that. And Hulk, it's been around for so long, but basically, like, he's big and strong. Got it. Like, okay, what's your third character? Space God. You go, wow. Like, that takes a lot of chutzpah. I mean, it seems like Captain America be next one, like, he's like a regular guy. He's just stronger, faster, has an indestructible shield. Like, people can wrap their heads around it. But nope, went full on for Space God. It's pretty impressive that they sort of thought that people could handle it, and it proved right, because this could have been the death knell of the MCU. People went, nope, I'm out. Like, it really could have been the end right here.
Well, and how cool is it to see, like, now to go back, and that's another reason why I'm excited about season 4 and to hear what you guys do. This story, basically, people have some sort of criticism sometimes about Thor. But now you look and you see the role that this puts into play. Like, Dark World plays a big role later on in the MCU. We've seen now what Loki has done and how incredible that is moving forward. Love and Thunder, everybody's excited about. Ragnarok was incredible. And it all starts with this movie. And I think that that's going to be something really neat to do a deep dive on.
And I think that's something that Andy and I have talked about a lot that we're definitely going to work in is, like I said, like, so much of what I know about Thor now in watching this movie is shaped by where I see him go as, in Ragnarok and in Endgame and Infinity War. And I think it's so perfectly timed. And, Andy and Pete, you guys must have figured this out years ago. I'm sure you were doing this intentionally. The fact that it's coming out, we're going to start only a couple of months after Loki is finished. and Thor: Love and Thunder is going to drop right in the middle of us recording.
Wow.
I think it's just such a great time to sort of go back to the beginning of these characters and say, yeah, Thor. I mean, I don't watch too many trailers because I try not to be spoiled, but I know that like Love and Thunder is going to be all about Thor and Jane becoming maybe a Thor character. So getting to see Thor and Jane meeting for the first time, Jane experiencing that this thing exists for the first time. I mean, I kind of get chills just thinking about it. You know, it's good. To me, it's going to be so interesting to dive so deep, knowing where it's going to go.
And Darcy, give a lot of love to Darcy. That's one thing. That's what I put towards you.
I can't put too much love on Darcy because I'm going to really want Agent Wu to show up. But like, other than that,
true.
But
so,
go ahead.
Without doing too much behind the scenes stuff, you guys are in production. So you've already started sort of rolling a bit. So like, what
we start rolling tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So like, so this is like first day of school.
Yeah. I know.
But we've been doing our homework all summer.
Yeah. Well, of course, I would expect.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Been a lot of research.
Okay, so I want to ask. You know, we just finished a few minutes ago. I think minute 119. We did a behind the scenes about how Kyle and I have been doing this right for the last 2 seasons, and we talked about how we just sort of evolved into the opening where he opens, I pivot into some absurd pull from the minute. Have you figured out what your what your open's going to be on your minutes, or do you want to divulge any of that? Can we give a little teaser of what's to come?
I don't know if we're completely locked in on a particular thing yet. I think we're going to be.
Oh wow! Very mysterious.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm more interested now.
It'll be a surprise.
I think because part of what we're going to be doing is, and I think some of the earlier formats have been fantastic, where when it's just 2 people talking, you can get such a great dynamic. But especially since I first heard of this when I was a guest, I have a particular love for guests.
Sure.
And I think at this point we have guests lined up for almost every minute of the movie. And so I think a lot of our opening is going to be kind of welcoming the guests, but really, you know, and when I say that, I mean, part of what we've gone for is we have people who are comic book experts. We have people who are, you know, professors of Shakespeare, you know, who are real experts on that. We have people who know, like someone who's done a lot of work around like hair care and makeup and stuff like that. Is going to go deep on the problems with Thor's wig, because I know that's a very big concern for some people. So I that's what I was saying. Andy, we're having kind of fun in that Andy is basically like, I'm the new guy in town, but Andy has basically said, like, look, you know, here's the keys, keep driving. I'm waiting for Andy to say, you know what, let's pull over and rediscuss this a little bit. But right now, what we're doing now is kind of the really way I love doing podcasts, of saying, look, we've got some people here with some great ideas. Let's discuss it. I'm going to have an outline of like, I want to hit this, this, and this. We have all these great little nuggets. You know, if this one thing appears in a shot for 10 seconds, we may talk about it for 10 minutes. But it's really going to be about seeing where the energy of the conversation goes, making sure we hit all the key points of that minute, but also just seeing like what's the thing about the minute that grabs us that we really want to kind of dive deep into.
Oh, I love it. You are more than worthy to wield the power of the Marvel Movie Minute.
Again, you're placing the bar real high for me. You know? So let's do this more about the new person is finding their way, and so we're going to see what they can do and give them a good hope. You know, let's
and all that.
That's right. So I'm for one am super excited to see what you guys do with the show, to take it in a different direction. We took it in a different direction, and now you're going to take it in your own thing and make it your own thing. I think it's going to be great. So I'm hoping that everyone who is subscribing now will stay subscribed, and then tell everyone else that they know that they need to subscribe too, because I think Thor is going to be a very, very different kind of discussion. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it'll be a fun one, and they're going to be right around the corner. I think the beginning of October, that first Monday of October, they'll start releasing. So it's gonna happen right quick.
Right, exactly. So you won't need to do anything to your podcatcher.
That's right.
Catch the next one on the way.
Exactly. You both are amazing.
Well, I want to send that shout out back, because I have to say, I feel like in this regard, we got the better end of the stick, in that all Marvel movies have a lot to talk about. But if you asked me if I'm going to do Thor or Iron Man 2, I think it's a pretty easy choice for me. And the fact that I've been listening, you all have made me care about Iron Man 2 in ways, again, that I didn't really think were possible. So it means a lot to hear that. And I think excited to get the baton handed off and to see where Andy and I can go.
It is going to be a lot of fun, but I will agree with Matthew. It's been a lot of fun listening to all of the conversations the two of you have had with the Incredible Hulk and Iron Man 2, and I know I got the opportunity to be guest on both of those, but they've been really fun shows to listen to and a lot of interesting information. And so kudos to the two of you. You carry the torch well. And I will say I was often jealous that I was not part of the conversation with you, because I'm kind of on your side on Iron Man 2, Rob. I enjoy watching that movie. It's not my favorite, but still, I really do enjoy it. So
I appreciate that.
Well, just like Jon Favreau was one of the architects and then stepped away only to reoccur as Happy Hogan, I think the same thing will be us. We're handing off the show to the next group. So from our Jon Favreau to your Kenneth Branagh, it's in good hands.
It's going to be fun. And you will also be a guest on it. So it'll be,
right.
People will still get to hear you.
Happy Hogan keeps showing up. Right. So, can't keep good hosts away.
That's right.
We don't show up.
Sounds great.
All right, so we're back in the studio. Our new hosts, Matthew and Andy, have traveled off into Asgard and are working on the next thing, leaving us here back in Southern California.
They are so
totally at Stark Manor, working on our own stuff.
They are so great.
Yeah, but as you can tell, things are about to change.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
But I don't want anybody to freak out about that. Like, yes, Rob and I have a sort of silly, freewheeling, probably too many wrestling references style. Probably. That is not going to be the case with Matthew and Andy. But that being said, I want you to, anyone who's like, but you're my guys, I want to stay with you. Give them a chance, oh yeah, because you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, like in the way that when people have left the MCU, like how can the MCU survive without this creative person? Yeah, it does.
It does.
Like the Thor movies. Every Thor movie has been made by a different filmmaker.
Right.
So in the way, it might be that we're the Alan Taylor and they end up being the Taika Waititi. You don't know. Like different flavors, different styles. Well, but they're continuing on in the same way the MCU brings new talent in. Same thing in Marvel Movie Minute will bring new talent in, and it'll go in its own direction. It'll be a totally different show, but yet still be in the same sort of universe.
And I think it is really good, one, because Thor is such a different movie. We talked about this a little bit in our conversation with them. So I think the timing is right. I think it is going to be wonderful. I know there's a lot of people that are big fans of guests, and I think there's a lot of great stuff with that. I know we try to do it more in this season at the beginning,
and then it is
because it's a Herculean effort. Yeah. I mean, it adds really a whole other level of scheduling and prepping and all of that. And so, my hat's off to everybody who does that on a regular basis. Yeah, I'm just excited. I said it when we talked to them. I'm excited for the show. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be great because I don't know what information they're going to have. So this is going to be interesting because it's I hope you guys have enjoyed this, but for us, we're just getting stuff out there. Now we get to be on the other side and go, oh, I had no idea. Oh, I didn't know that's who that cameo was. Oh, I didn't know that that piece of tech or whatever it was. I mean, it's going to be interesting for us. We actually get to be fans for once.
Well, and I do think we are going to be guests.
That's true. Yeah. So at some point, we're gonna give them some space. Like we're gonna give them a chance to get their own show up and running. We're not gonna be so. We'll look for us sort of midway through the movie.
Yeah. Don't even worry about.
We'll jump in there. Cool. So we don't want to overshadow this because they're inheriting the house and they're remaking it in their own image. So we don't want to interfere with that process.
Of course. And the best news is, if you say to yourself, "Well, I guess this is it. I'm done. What do I do now?" We're not done. There is. Still a little bit.
That's right. There's still little footage still coming.
Stuff left. Things to talk about.
We have obviously Clark Gregg. We have that. And we've got now new hosts coming in. But there's still more of Iron Man 2. Like the actual movie is not over yet. So as the credits are still rolling. So you need to stay subscribed because you've come this far with us. You need to finish the quest with us too. Yeah,
exactly.
Almost there. And since we're discussing rebranding. Obviously, new hosts kicking over. Like, there'll be new art coming out. There'll also be new art for a bunch of the shows, and you can follow all that stuff on Instagram. The next reel itself, actually, the parent company has a brand new, really cool looking logo that you can get on a bunch of merchandise, and it'll be all over our stuff there. But the best place to find out about that stuff is on Instagram. So by following @thenextreel, you can see every time the new logo, new information, new stuff comes out, new show announcements, all that stuff in there. We'd be happy to have you because we're doing our best to keep things looking pretty.
Nice.
So stay subscribed. You've come this far with us. We want you here at the end. So make sure you're back here for minute 124 as we finally get done with the list of names and into some actual footage, and you don't want to miss it. Enough said.
Bye.